So, of course, a lot of us know that social media is where you can use it to market your project, market your work, but especially if you are an artist or if you're running like a touring company or anyone who sort of is any brand that is reliant on having a bunch of gigs, you know how important it is to really use social media well, so that way you can use it to get more gigs. And, there's actually a method to how you can do this. So I'm Annie Schiffman, first of all. I started Downstage Media a few years back, and Downstage Media gives social media tips specifically through the lens of the performing arts. And we give you strategies and ideas. I don't know why I just said we. It's like the royal we. It's just me. It's kind of a one woman show. But anyway, so that's what I do at Downstage Media. And so for the past 5, 6, 7 years, I've been running the social media for specifically an off-Broadway touring improv show called Broadway's Next Musical. And about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we established what I have found to be absolutely necessary for anyone who relies on gigs for their work. And basically, we came up with a standard operating procedure. And so this is how you can use social media to get more gigs, because what you want to do is standardize what you're doing every single time. I have today Rachel F Hirsch. Rachel F Hirsch. I don't know what's going on today. Rachel F Hirsch is a voiceover artist. And a few months ago, we started working together, and she's been able to devise a standard operating procedure for every time that she gets a voiceover project. And you're going to hear about how that's worked out really well for her. And we're going to take you through some steps that you can do to create your own standard operating procedure. So the first thing to do is I'd love to know who is watching. Where are you watching this from? Just let me know and put that right in the comments, because we want to have really a dialogue. So during the course of this Facebook Live, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this later on demand, feel free to add your comments, feel free to ask questions, because we're definitely going to be looking at the comments later on, and we'll be able to circle back and get you the answers that you want. So I do have Rachel F Hirsch coming up soon, but it's really important that you think about using your social media and standardizing it, so that way every single place, every production company, every venue, every company that you're working with knows that they are going to get that sort of standardized level of marketing that's going to go along with their project. Now, of course, we know that you are being hired as the talent, right? So doing all of this stuff is going above and beyond. But I think that once you're hearing from Rachel F Hirsch, you're going to realize how important it is in order to continue getting more work when those venues or those presenters or producers see you as a partner in that project together. So it's really going to be all about standardizing your content. You know what? If you sort of think of it like fast food, right? So that way, every time you go to McDonald's, you know you're going to get the really good French fries. And you want it to be that someone knows that if they hire you for a project, that you are going to be able to deliver those same things to them every time. And so we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to bring up Rachel F Hirsch right now, and she's going to talk about some of the strategies that she uses in her voiceover work and how you may be able to use them in your work. So also let me know if you are the kind of person who you or your brand relies on gigs. Let me know what kind of work that is. Is it voiceover? Is it acting? Is it touring? Things like that. Just let me know in the comments as well, so that way we can really gear what we're saying to you. So, okay, here comes Rachel F Hirsch. She's coming up onto the screen. Hey, Rachel, how's it going?
Hello, good. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. I'm so excited to be talking to you about this, because Rachel and I have had so many conversations about this very topic. And every time she tells me her successes, I get more and more excited. So, Rachel, why don't you share a little bit about the kind of work that you do specifically, and what you have found with sort of standardizing some of the social media content that you have around that work?
Sure. So I primarily these days am recording audiobooks as an audiobook narrator. I do other voiceover work as well, mostly narration based. And some like little animated projects and things like that. Some things for in-house for companies, but mostly sort of forward-facing projects that consumers will be able to interact with in some way. And it's probably worth mentioning that in terms of audiobooks, a lot of the work I do is in the romance realm, and I use a pseudonym for that work, which is really pretty standard practice for romance, both for narrators and for authors. I won't be talking about what that name is today, but it's significant to mention because the work that we've done, it's sort of hard to build a brand as a persona that nobody knows about. Because I wanted to market that to a different audience. So it's been really helpful to work with you to help build that brand, even though it's the same work I'm doing under this name. I had to build it in a completely different way and try to find a way for people to find me in the internet universe, even though that person doesn't really exist.
Yeah,
so it's a
because
little tricky.
oftentimes when you're first launching a brand, the first place that you go is to your friends and family and you let them know, hey, I have this thing going on. And that usually can get you the first 20 to 50 people to kind of propel that brand. But when you're using a pseudonym, or even I will say too, sometimes your friends and family are not the appropriate audience for that brand. So yeah, when you're starting from scratch, it is important to have a way of getting that brand out there. And so I'm glad that you found something that's worked really well for you. So why don't you talk a little bit first, before you even started establishing what your sort of standard operating procedure was going to be each time for each project that you got. Why don't you tell us first about how you kicked it off with one email in particular? So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I had a couple projects in the works at the time. And I noticed over the years that those publishers or production companies they had their own social media and they would talk about their books. But I didn't have a social media presence for my pseudonym. So I wasn't getting tagged in those. It wasn't helping me in any way. They paid me for the project and then they went on to continue collecting as people purchased the audiobook. But it would have been nice to help kind of build up more future work by being tied to those projects. So I created sort of a template for an email to send out to all the projects I had just completed or I was in process with that hadn't been released yet, but my part of the job was done. My narration was done. And I basically asked them a couple of, I think I have it right here. It's like 7 questions that I put in all these emails and I kind of, tweak it depending on who I'm sending it to. But sort of establishing that I am going to be a partner to you publisher or you author, or whoever I'm sending this email to in the marketing of this book. So it starts with, what are the social media handles that you'll be using that I can link to on my social media is, in terms of the publisher or the production company, the author, fellow narrators, what are all those social media handles so that anytime I post, I can be sure to tag everyone and connect it all together. I also asked what are specific hashtags that are going to be used, if any, for that particular book. I asked, are there initiatives or special rollouts, events that I should know about that are coming up that I can help promote? And then I can look out for that they're posting about that I can share as well. Visual assets, any kind of content that they're going to be creating that they would like me to use so that everything is standardized across the board. So for the viewer, it looks as though, and it's the truth of it, that we are a team all working towards the same goal of getting the information out about this project. And then I asked him more specific questions about, like, would it be okay if I posted a little video of me reading a few minutes or a couple of lines from this book? What are the release dates? Anything that I should know about that I need to kind of keep under wraps until a certain date? And so and on and on. So I asked them these questions and the response. Go Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I'm just going to talk about that first, right? So imagine that you are working, you're a production company or you're working in a publisher's office, you're dealing with voiceover talent all the time. If you get an email from someone like this, who's this together and this proactive, saying, what are the hashtags I should follow? Do you have any visual assets I should use every time? Who are the people I should tag? That automatically is going to let it's going to put that person in a better light, right? And it's going to make your job at the production company that much easier, because everyone knows how social media is so important when it's used organically, right? Think about how producers love it for in the theater world, that like, oh, first day of rehearsal shot that everyone likes to take of themselves with the script at the table and all that stuff. And producers love that because it is free advertising for them. And so when you already have somebody right off the bat who's like, look, I'm going to do all this work for you for free. It's going to benefit me because it's going to build my brand. It's going to benefit you because it's going to boost sales. That's a win-win for everyone. So what happened when you did this for the projects that you were already working on? What happened then?
Well, I got, first of all, pretty much everyone I wrote to responded immediately, which doesn't always happen. It was like within an hour, I'd gotten responses, not necessarily answers to all the questions, but oh my goodness, thank you so much for asking these questions. We're going to talk to our marketing departments and have them get in touch with you. And then most of them got in touch with me pretty fast, which I think was really telling, because there was something new and exciting about having received this email. And it was a lot of thank yous for, wanting to do this work and partnering with us in this way. And it was very clear to me that this was setting a whole new bar for me as a narrator, and like what they could expect from me whenever they hired me, and that could only create more work for me with these companies in the future.
Yeah. So I love that. So this sort of brings us to like those sort of first steps, right? So that first thing is to have that initial email that you're going to ask. So if you're working with producers, if you're working with production companies, just let them know those sorts of things, right? Or, just say, I want to partner with you. And what do I need to know? Who are the names I should tag? What are the hashtags I should use? Is there any stuff? And Rachel also asked about certain dates. When are dates that I can launch stuff? When can I go public with this? So that way she's also making it very clear, I'm going to honor any kind of exclusivity or any kind of secrecy that they want to have, or excitement about the launch, that you're being very upfront, that you're going to honor no matter what that is, and letting them know you're not just going to spill the beans, but when the time is right, you're looking to partner with them. So I love that. Another thing is that I think, so Rachel, how do you organize it? Because I think it's important to keep some kind of a checklist. I usually just do like a Google sheet where I just, put a little X in the cells for each one. But how do you organize it so that way you can keep track of all those hashtags and people to follow and stuff like that?
Well, first of all, they answer me in the emails that I send. So I always try to flag those emails so I can go back and reference. But I also set up, you had introduced me to an application called Trello. Which is like sticky notes. So I've kind of set up an order of operations through there that I can use over and over again to remind me of, at what point in this process do I want to post which thing? And also here's all the content that they've given me based off of the questions that I asked them. So I have it all kind of in one place and can go sticky note by sticky note and make sure that I've completed all the elements.
Great. Okay, cool. So yeah, so whatever that is, however it's going to work the best for you. So Rachel said Trello, Google Sheets works as well. Yeah, whatever it is, just to kind of keep all that together. I also recommend, once you have people's email addresses or their handles or whatever, if you're using some kind of an address book, just to add those things in there as well, right? So that way you also have them there, so you keep their not only their name and their email, but then also their social media handles and whatever is important too. And we sort of said this a little bit before, but also letting people know, like, this is what I do. This is what I do every single time, and getting that word out there, because then the production team, they all know you are on their side. You are a partner with them. You are not solely just talent. So even the fact that, Rachel, by sending out that initial email, they're contacting you with their marketing team. Like already now we've got different groups of people working together to help sell that book. And you've got that synthesis, which is really important. And then repeat every time. Okay, so tell me a little bit now about, because how long have you been working with this sort of standard operating procedures? A few months, right?
Yeah, I think since like February.
Okay, yeah. So a couple of months, few months. Tell me a little bit about how it's going. Is it hard to keep up with? Is it helpful to know that you know what you're going to post, or just to be able to share things? Tell me a little bit about the actual experience for you.
It's definitely helpful. It basically helps me I now have content planned out. There's fewer things I have to come up with, because I know, okay, every time I book something, I book a project, I know I'm going to have X amount of posts already that I'm going to be pumping out just for that project. And then I have multiple projects. So that covers a lot of content. And then that lets me play in between with, question prompts and things like that to keep my audience engaged. But it's just fewer things that I have to come up with because I'm already prepared for it. It's also just, in more of a global sense, it's helped me to build an audience. I mean, there were already people listening to my work, but as I said, I didn't have a social media presence before. So this is really for my pseudonym. So this has really built up and beefed up my social media presence pretty quickly. And now I have all these listeners who are engaging with me personally all the time, which I imagine at some point is going to become a little overwhelming, but it's exciting to know that, there are listeners out there I didn't know about. And now I know that they're there, and I know how much they're enjoying the work. And that just kind of propels things forward. Something else that's kind of fun, and maybe really specific to the romance industry, is that authors have a lot of say in romance, because so many of them are self-producing and self-published authors or indie authors. They tend to have a lot of say in who their narrators are, and they listen to their fan base. So because that fan base now feels that they know me through my social media and through these interactions, they are actively reaching out to their favorite authors and asking them to hire me, and I'm booking work because of it. So that's pretty exciting, and kind of an added bonus to, it kind of works on both sides, right? Like I'm building this positive relationship with the publishers and with the production companies, but also with the fans. And then it's all sort of cyclical and connected in that way.
Right, exactly. Because you're giving the fans what they want. They want to know where they can get more of your content. They've already said, I like your content. Tell me where I can find more of it. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to keep up with you. The authors want to listen to their fans for the same way. They want to give the fans what they want, so that way the fans will buy more of their stuff. And the production company wants to make this all easy for everybody, right? They just want to keep like churning out more books and having bigger book sales, right? So all of this works together to really give the audience what it is that they want. So I love that. So can you tell me a little bit specifically about how you feel it's affected your voiceover work? Because when we first started working together, and I should say, when you follow at Rachel F Hirsch on Twitter, on Instagram, you see her handle down there, you're going to see that she is a working artist. She has a number of different projects going on, just as Rachel F Hirsch, not even as her pseudonym. So Rachel, tell me about how this has changed, how you've thought about your voiceover work in terms of overall within the span of the art that you create and within your career.
Yeah. So things started to pick up so much that I realized, like, voiceover and specifically audiobooks is really what I want to be focusing most of my time with as an artist, because I have some theater projects that I work on, and as all performers do, I do a million things, but I have so much control now over my voiceover work, specifically because of the social media piece of this and the relationships, the very specific relationships I'm now building with my client base, that it's so much more gratifying, and it's just lifestyle wise, more in line with what I need to know when projects are happening, to be able to say, no, I need to take this time off. And to be in control, and to know that the work I'm doing is directly building more work. The social media work that I'm doing, the marketing work that I'm doing is 100% building more gigs for me, and bringing more gigs my way. And I like that. I like that control, and I'm enjoying the work. And so I've, through the work we've been doing together, just discovered that, oh, this is how I want to be spending most of my time as an artist.
Right, because when you're able to see that you're being rewarded not only with the gratifying aspect of it, of your audience connecting with you, and you're getting emails from them, you're getting comments from them, and that's exciting and that's gratifying. But then when you also have the financial element of it coming in, then that allows you to do, or at least to pick and choose what other projects you're working on, right? Because you don't feel like you're only going to chase the money. You have a nice setup. You decided to kind of go full time with voiceover because you're seeing like, this is where I'm getting the most rewards in a number of different ways. So then that way you can take that and you can funnel it, both the energy, the gratification that you're getting, and the financial aspect of it, to other projects that you're working on, right? Like it's, again, we keep talking about cycles, right? And I think that's what so much of this is about, is like, you start the process. A production company reaches out to you and they say, we want to book you for this thing. And then boom, you've got your standard operating procedure, that you've got that cycle going. And so then the whole thing just keeps building and building and building as you are building your audience. So I'm so excited, and I hope for you watching that this is helpful for you to come up with whatever your standard operating procedure is. So Rachel, just while we finish, why don't you kind of say a few things that you have in your standard operating procedure? We talked about the initial email that you send out asking about those questions and stuff like that, but tell me a little bit about what that timeline looks like. Like what types of content are in there?
Yeah, the timeline is a little bit tricky because with publishing, I could be recording a project many, many months in advance of it actually being released. So it kind of varies in terms of the rollout. It varies depending on what's needed for the particular project. But that being said, the things that I'm posting are pretty standardized. So I created a graphic that has sort of a bar in the middle of it where I can put text, and that text changes depending on what part of the project I'm announcing. So it starts with, I booked a new project, it's for, and if I'm able to announce the name of the book and the author, then I'll put that there. Sometimes I have to wait to announce that, but I could just say I booked a project with, and name the producer that I'm working with, more information coming soon, kind of thing. I stepped ahead. I jumped ahead because actually the first thing I do is I have an email list that I've been building, and I always send out all of this to them first. And then once
I love that. Can I just, I need to interject here. I feel like if people are entrusting you with their email list, they should get first dibs. I love that. And so they get first dibs on the information. So an email goes out. All right. So I cut you off. I'm so sorry.
No.
Just,
yeah.
I think it's
yeah. So when I book a new project, before I post about it on social media, I send out an email with the exciting news and, little tidbits I can share. And I've made that really clear everywhere where I talk about my email list, that if you join this list, you get all the news first. And so I try to honor that each time. So I do that. Then I post, once I've done that on social media, I use this same graphic and I say, booked a new gig, here's where it is. On Instagram specifically, I've created stories and, highlighted stories. And one of the highlights is bookings. And so all those bookings will go in there so people can see sort of what I've been booking along the way. Then I will post think the next thing I do is I post a clip of me recording some part of the book. And of course I'll be tagging, tagging all of the people involved and companies involved when I do make any of these posts.
Right. And also you can see how, whether if you're an actor or if you're building for a brand that tours, right? It's all the same thing. You announce that the booking has come out. You say whatever you can say, you tag whoever you can say at that early phase of the game. And then you have a post that is about the sort of the process, right? The in medias res of it. What you in the middle of things. So if it's a theater piece, then maybe it's that you are in rehearsal, or if you're a touring show, then you're on the road to do it. But whatever it is, right, then you're showing the process of things.
Right.
So in the middle of things. Great.
Right.
And keep going. So what else do you have?
So there's that process post. Then when the timing is, when I'm allowed to do so, I post what the release date is or the pre-order date, and kind of continue to build buzz that way. And then on release day and the couple of days leading up to release day, it's almost here, I post, as you said, sort of more processy things. So maybe it's a picture of me in my booth, or maybe it's another little audio clip, or maybe the producer has created like a video asset that I can share. And then it's the release day, and I announce that. And I also share, usually the authors will have something that they're posting on release day, and I try to share that as well. And then a year later, I haven't done this with this new process yet, but I've started doing it with older books. On the release day, birthday, as it were, I post about that book that day. And that's been really great too, because some people who are just getting to know me as a narrator now know about work that they maybe haven't heard yet, and they've been getting really excited about that. And again, it's another thing that I like, just built-in content that I don't have to think too much about. I have to create the asset, but it's just, I know exactly when I want to post it, and I know what I want it to say.
It makes life so much easier once you already know that. And then keep in mind that every time she tags that author, tags that production company, tags that publisher, they get a notification, right? And that is that already right there. That is little ways that you are just saying to those people who have hired you in the past, hey, I'm doing this for you. I'm working for you. And they just again, another little reminder. So not only when they're scrolling through their feed do they see that, but they also get a notification about it. So, well, Rachel, I am so excited that this has worked out so well for you, that this process has worked out so well for you, that it's been so well received between your audience and your authors and the publishers. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and talk to my audience about this today. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for teaching me everything I know now. I wouldn't have gotten to the place I am at this point without your help. So I'm really grateful that we connected, and that you've been willing to pass along your knowledge to me.
Well, I mean, the thing is that my knowledge is only as good to the people who implement it. So considering that you implement it every time, then you're able to see the benefits of it. So, so I'm so glad it's worked out for you. For you watching this, give this a try. Let us know if you've got any questions about what things to put in your standard operating procedure, maybe something that we didn't cover, or maybe you've got some questions because your brand is a little bit different than the ones that we talked about. Leave me a comment and I'll make sure that I get to you. In the meantime, you can follow at Rachel F Hirsch on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also follow at Annie Schiffman on Instagram, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.